As reported about 2 weeks ago, Tesla is crushing it on production and delivery numbers, but it really is a tale of two cities. Other EV manufacturers are having significant problems, particularly in the United States. Let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I want to talk about Tesla's production and delivery numbers, but I want to put it in context with what's going on, particularly in the United States with EV inventory. And I believe this shows that consumers are getting more and more discerning about EVs. They're not just willing to buy any EV because it says electric vehicle on it, but they're starting to pay attention to what they can get with their EVs, which is why Teslas are doing so well, and many other EV manufacturers, particularly Ford, are doing poorly right now. So let's begin with this CNN article from July 2nd that goes over the numbers for Tesla. Tesla beat expectations in the second quarter of 2023, saying it produced nearly 480,000 vehicles and delivered 466,000. The majority of production and deliveries were Model 3 and Model Y, obviously, and Model S and Model X are doing rather well. Interestingly enough, the Model S and Model X that are kind of a blip on the radar for Tesla are actually more than what GM is producing themselves per quarter in EV sales totally. So that's the interesting sort of comparison that you can make, which is that Tesla's small sales thing for their very expensive cars are doing better than a company like GM that is considered to be a very good EV player with their Chevy Bolt, which I did a video on a couple of days ago, which is a good car, but the problem is that they're canceling it because they can't make it profitably. But anyway, that vehicle is selling around the same number as Models S and X, which cost like 3 times as much as the Chevy Bolt. So even those small numbers actually show how well Tesla is doing versus the competition. But anyway, the Model Y and Model 3 are obviously the rock stars of the game. They're the ones that are doing particularly well. And then turning to the end, and of course, if you're interested in looking at this, I will leave links to this in the description so you can look at them yourselves. But anyway, last year, Tesla reported deliveries of 254,695 units, and they produced 258,580 units. And the first quarter this year, they produced about 441,000 units and delivered about 423,000 units. So you can see that they're doing really, really well on all the metrics. Now, of course, the Tesla bears still point out that Tesla's inventory is expanding and it's growing. Tesla has been very specific about the fact that they're not going to push as hard at the end of every single quarter to deliver every single car that they can because it costs a lot of money and it actually makes the experience for their employees really bad, but even for customers, because customers at the end of the quarter are just getting inundated and they're like being pushed through really fast. They're not given the time and the care by Tesla showrooms and sales that they actually need. So this is better for everybody. The consensus is that Tesla has about 16 days worth of inventory, and so keep that in mind as we look at this other article. More on that in a minute, but first, do you want to make your summer as enjoyable as possible? Then I highly recommend AG1. AG1 is an amazing supplement with 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, prebiotics, probiotics, and adaptogens to support your gut health and your overall well-being. Just one scoop in 8 to 12 ounces of water per day, and I feel great. And I love the fact that it has a sweet pineapple flavor without any added sugar, so it's great for your low sugar diet as well. And if you go to drinkag1.com/drknowitall or just click the link in the description, you get a free year supply of vitamins D3 and K2 and 5 travel packets, which is great for the summertime when a lot of people go on trips. As I've been traveling around so much this summer and had such a disrupted life, it's really, really helpful to have a consistent daily dose of high quality vitamins, minerals, prebiotics, probiotics, all the good stuff for your gut, all the good stuff for your body. It really is amazing, and I actually feel fantastic. And if you want to try it out yourself, Drink AG1 gives you a 90-day risk-free trial. So what have you got to lose? Click the link below, get your 5 travel packs, your year's supply of vitamins D3 and K2. What have you got to lose except the potential to feel a whole lot better like I do? Now let's get back to it. So now looking at this Teslarati article from July 11th from Simon Alvarez, and hi Simon. Anyway, a survey from Cox Automotive estimates that electric vehicle sales in the US auto market could surpass 1 million units for the first time in 2023. And remember that Tesla is responsible for a very large amount of that, about 67%, I believe, or 64%, somewhere around 2/3 of all of the US EV sales. And actually, I believe that number might grow a little bit in the second half of the year if what this article is saying holds true. Electric cars currently account for about 6.5% of the country's automotive sector. Cox also found that about 51% of consumers are now considering the purchase of a new or secondhand EV. That's up from 38% in 2021. So this is all good news. Such a trend, however, seems to be largely pushed by Tesla and the popularity of the Model 3 sedan and Model Y crossover. The Model Y became the world's best-selling vehicle by volume in the first quarter of the year, and the Model 3 is expected to see a rise in sales following the release of its highly anticipated Project Highland update. And here's where things get interesting. Beyond Tesla, however, it appears that the picture is much different in the United States. As per inventory data from Cox, the nationwide supply of electric vehicles in stock swelled by almost 350%, wow, this year to over 92,000 units. As noted by Axios, such inventory corresponds to a 92-day supply, which is almost twice the industry average. For context, dealers have about 54 days worth of inventory for gas-powered cars. And remember, in context, Tesla has around 16 days of inventory. So looking at these numbers, you can see that Tesla's amount of inventory, even though Tesla bears talk about it a lot, it's basically nothing compared to even ICE car inventory that legacy auto has. And certainly nothing compared to the 92-day inventory that other companies' EV supplies are at. A look at Cox's data showed that some EV brands are seemingly seeing a lack of buyers. Audi's Q4 e-tron and Q8 e-tron, which by the way are rather expensive, as well as the GMC Hummer EV SUV, which is very expensive, have inventories that are well above 100 days. And that's really interesting because the Hummer has sold very, very few cars. I mean, we're talking about, I think it was 2 in the first quarter and like 19 or something like that in the second quarter. It was very, very small. And so if they've got 100 days of inventory, that means that GM saying that there's this huge demand for the Hummer EV is not there because they're only selling a few of these cars. And the assumption was that there just wasn't the supply and people were waiting for it. But it looks like the supply is there and there's 100 days worth of inventory, even though they're only selling a couple of these cars per quarter. And by the way, the Audis and the GMC Hummer do not qualify for the US tax credit, and that's a big deal. The Kia EV6, Hyundai Ioniq 5, and Nissan Ariya are also seeing their inventories stacking up. Even the Ford Mustang Mach-E, which is popular and well-loved, now has a 117-day supply. And the Ford Mustang Mach-E didn't used to qualify for the tax credit. It actually does now, I believe, for the full $7,500. And Ford has reduced the price several times. So the fact that they have this big of an inventory is a really, really bad sign that people are just not interested in the Mach-E. And just finishing up here, the Hummer EV SUV for one is too expensive to qualify for the IRA incentives, as I said, and the Hyundai Ioniq 5 is an imported unit, so it doesn't count either. The Ford Mustang Mach-E is a bit of an outlier since it qualifies for the federal tax credit, but it still has a surplus of inventory anyway. All right, so that's the facts. What in the world is going on here? The first thing is that we can see that the US tax credit is really, really pushing people towards US, Mexico, Canada made vehicles because they're able to get that tax credit. And of course, the batteries being supplied from the United States is also a big deal. And that is a big challenge for most auto manufacturers because they don't have battery supplies in the US. Most of them get their batteries from China and maybe from some place like Japan or Korea. And that doesn't give them access to as much of the tax credit as Tesla is able to get because they're able to push all of their manufacturing, all of their batteries, everything into the United States. And that is a really, really huge deal for Tesla. That makes a really big difference. But even with something like the Ford Mustang Mach-E, we've still got a huge difference, 16 days versus 117 days. You know, we're looking at an order of magnitude-ish, maybe 8 times or something like that. It's a really, really big difference in the amount of inventory. So what is going on right here? My personal opinion is that if you dial time back a year, 18 months or something, people saw EV and they were like, ooh, I want to purchase an EV for whatever reason, for the environment. It has more fun capabilities, things like that. If you go forward to today, and I think this will continue to increase into the future, number one, people are very price sensitive. They're like, ooh, more people are interested in EVs than used to be. So it's a broader audience. And of course, that broader audience is going to be very price sensitive. So if something costs $2,000 or $3,000 less than something else, they're going to look at that very, very significantly. Now, of course, there are brand things like a lot of people are Ford people or whatever. So that would actually counterbalance some of this stuff. But the other thing is that people are really looking now, I believe, at what the car has, at its specifications. Where can it charge? How much range does it have? What is the efficiency of the vehicle? What features does it have? What is it about the vehicle that makes this better than just buying another gas car or something, right? So we're looking at most people purchasing these vehicles right now are new to electric vehicles. They are not people who've had EVs before because there just hasn't been all that much time for people to have purchased EVs and then purchased another round of EVs. So what you're looking at is people moving from internal combustion engine vehicles over to electric vehicles. And what they want to see is a significant advantage in terms of the cost of ownership, the sticker price, and the features that they get for that vehicle. And when you look at that, if you do comparison shopping and you drive around and you drive other vehicles and then you drive a Tesla, you're like, for the money, what in the world is going on here? Why would I not purchase a Tesla? That's my personal opinion, right? I'm using this as data to back that up, but I believe what's happening is that consumers you're getting a broader and broader base of consumers. The broader that base, the more price sensitive that base is, the more that they actually care about the features and stuff, and not just the fact that it's an EV because they're, helping out the environment or making themselves feel better or virtue signaling or whatever that is. But they're actually looking at this as a practical car, and cost is super important, but also what you get for that cost. And when you look at Tesla's supercharging network, the features on the vehicles and the cost of these vehicles, especially in the United States with the tax credits, there's just no question that a Tesla EV is significantly better than anything else on the market, which is why Tesla is selling fantastically and everybody else is struggling, and why Tesla has 16 days of inventory. Legacy auto internal combustion engine vehicles have around 54 days worth of inventory, and legacy and other EV manufacturers have around 92 days worth of inventory. And then you even have vehicles like the Ford Mustang Mach-E, which looks like a pretty decent vehicle on paper, has 117 days worth of inventory. The problem is that that is competing directly against the Model Y. And when you look at basically anything versus the Model Y, there's just no competition. So Ford is doing better with their F-150 Lightning right now, of course, but the bad news to them is that the Cybertruck is coming out sometime very, very soon. In the next month or two, we're going to start seeing deliveries roll out, and it won't take that much time for Tesla to ramp up to 20 or 30,000 of these vehicles. And that's about the number that the F-150 Lightning is producing per quarter. So it's going to be bad news for Ford all around. And I hope that, they have some plans in mind to do a better job and compete better. But right now, at least in the United States, it's Tesla's world and everybody else is paying rent, and they're paying a very, very high rent. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it fun and interesting and thought-provoking. If you did, please do like it so other people can find it. And of course, consider subscribing for more of this kind of content. As always, a huge shout out to my Patreon patrons, my YouTube channel members, and of course, my Twitter subscribers. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel in any way that you can. I truly do appreciate it. And if you're interested in a whole bunch of really cool merch, check out our merch store. Link is in the description. We have TeslaBot t-shirts, the Tesla meme t-shirt, success is a possible outcome, 4680 battery cells. All of that stuff is on t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, and on and on. So check it out. And finally, don't forget that we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates, and you can now get credits if you purchase a Tesla vehicle, speaking of purchasing Tesla vehicles. And of course, a big thanks to AG1 for sponsoring this video. Be sure to check out the link in the description and start feeling better soon. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.